Rectangles and ellipses are special forms of polygons in AutoCAD. Rectangles are fairly straightforward, where ellipses can be a bit tricky. But there are still a lot of things and a lot of ways that you can draw rectangles. Rectangles work a lot like the polygon command, except you're stuck with the criteria of a rectangle, only 4 sides. You get 2 parallel sets of sides that are equal. You get to pick 2 points on opposite sides of the rectangle to create your shape. So if we come to the ribbon and we can find the rectangle command here, and you can kind of get an idea of how you're going to pick it, your first point and then your second point. It's very straightforward and simple enough. That's your rectangle. And then once you select it, it's just a regular polyline that happens to be closed. Now, it is a bit more complicated because you have a lot more options to it than that. If you start the rectangle command, which by the way, you can just type REC on the command line, or the full word rectang. Now, you have a lot of different options down here: chamfer, elevation, fillet, thickness, and width. Some of those aren't available in AutoCAD LT. But if we pick our first point, we get another set of options: area, dimensions, and rotation. So your first choices will affect your second choices. But as with the line command, you can tell it how big you want your rectangle to be. If I type in 40, the horizontal distance of my rectangle will be 40 units. If I press the Tab key and type in 30, now my vertical length will be 30 units. And there you go. And then of course you can always grip edit when you're done. When you start the rectangle command, you have some different options: chamfer, elevation, fillet. We kind of mentioned these before. The chamfer and fillet will work very similarly. A chamfer will automatically chamfer the corners. So let's tell it 4 units by 4 units. Now, whenever we draw our rectangle, you can see the corners will be clipped. And there you go. And this is still a polyline. So if we do the rectangle command again, those settings are still set into AutoCAD. Now to turn those off, we'll have to define a chamfer of 0 units. Or you can even make them to be different. I can tell it 2 units and then 8 units, and you'll get a long clipped chamfer. As you can see, it doesn't do it the same way. It starts and then it kind of goes around. Now the fillet command works the same way, only it puts a round corner. Your other options, elevation, which is not available in AutoCAD LT, will draw a rectangle at a certain elevation. So let's say 40. Now it doesn't look any different, but when I go to rotate my view, you can see it's up higher. Now you can't do this in AutoCAD LT. This is only a feature in regular AutoCAD. But that's one thing you can do. Another option is in the thickness. Give it a thickness of 5. And again, as you can see, this is just a 3D shape. It's 5 units tall or thick. Again, not available in AutoCAD LT. And then the last option, the width. We'll give it a width of 5. Now this is an option that's available in AutoCAD LT. That makes the thickness of the line, the global width, just like a regular polyline of 5 units. Now it's also still set to be thick and at an elevation of 50. Whenever you make one of those changes to the settings of the rectangle command, you have to make sure to set them back until, of course, you close AutoCAD or the file and then reopen it. Then it will be reset to the default settings. Now, We saw some other options. Once you start drawing, you have area, dimensions, and rotation. Now, rotation will allow you to draw your rectangle rotated. So you pick your angle by picking a point or typing in the angle you want, and then you draw it in the regular way. And again, you're going to stay that way unless you reset your rotation back to 0 and continue drawing. Now the rectangle command again with the area, which is kind of interesting. You'd say that you want to have a shape for a swimming pool that is 1,000 units, square units. Press enter. Now, do you want the length or the width? The length will determine the horizontal side, and the width will be the vertical. So let's say length, and let's say we want it to be 200 units in length. It will automatically draw it so that it fits the shape. Let's try that again, but with something that works a little better. We'll go area, and then we'll go 1,000 units. We'll go length again. This time we'll say 20. And there you go. Now you have a rectangle with thickness that has a square footage or square units of 1,000 units. So if you're trying to design a swimming pool or a room for your house and you need it to be a certain square footage and you know you want one length to be a certain length, then it's very easy to get the other length without having to do any math. And then the last option that we'll show here is the dimensions. The dimension option is very similar to when you entered in the lengths and sides earlier. So you'll just be able to type in the lengths that you want, say 30 and then 50, and it locks it in for you. So the dimension option is a leftover from before AutoCAD had a dynamic input where it was very easy to type in your length and width. So you probably won't ever use that, but I wanted to show it to you in case you were wondering what it was. Now let's clear some of this off. And I want to show you the ellipse command. The ellipse is a little bit different, but it's similar to a circle and an arc in that you have multiple ways to draw them. You can even draw an elliptical arc. An ellipse is essentially an oval, and there are two main ways to draw them. Start the command by just typing in ellipse or EL. The default method is to pick the two horizontal points, meaning the two horizontal axis points. That will define how wide the ellipse will be. Then as you move your crosshairs up or down, you are defining the radius of that vertical arc. And there you go. Now you can edit it with grips again, changing it, moving it, just like any other object. So let's try that again. So you type in EL, and you want to pick your first point and then your second point. And those are the outer points of the ellipse. And as you can see, you can draw it at several different angles. This one's kind of rotated. Now, the other option is to pick the center first. And then you pick the end, and then you pick the other end. So you can go from side to side or from center to side. That's pretty straightforward. And you can pick the differences here, a center or an arc. The arc, you'll pick 1, 2 points, and then your third point, and then you pick where you want it to start, and then where you want it to finish. And there it is. So let's do that one again. If you come up to the elliptical arc, you're going to create your ellipse. And then you pick where it starts and then where it stops. The elliptical arc works just like the arc command in that it's drawn in a counterclockwise manner. And there you go. So that's the rectangle and that's the ellipse. The rectangle is very simple, but it has a lot of options. The ellipse is a bit tricky because you have to define your axes points or the center point, but it has fewer options available to it. but both are really cool and can make some great designs.